150 vacant chairs, a disgraced prince lingering on the sidelines, and a fury said to be simmering just out of sight. While Meghan Markle was preoccupied cutting off directors on stage, Prince Harry was confronting a truth that even endless PR spending couldn't conceal. They arrived in Utah expecting triumph. They anticipated a bidding frenzy. What they got instead was silence, a ghost town. But here's the angle the mainstream press won't dare explore. Insiders say Harry isn't disappointed by the empty seats. He's enraged. He isn't pointing fingers at the film's quality. He isn't blaming Netflix's reported refusal to buy it. No, true to Sussex form, Harry is allegedly directing his anger outward, blaming the public and the media for deliberately ruining what he saw as his defining moment tonight. We're pulling back the curtain on the Sundance implosion. This isn't just about 150 unused seats, or the fact that VIPs holding $6,900 badges chose to pass them by. We're digging into the mindset of a prince who claims he's hunted by stalkers in London, yet relentlessly pursues attention in Utah, only to erupt when the spotlight fades. Why did Netflix really walk away from this project? Why did Meghan grab the mic before the director could even speak? And why does Harry believe everyone is responsible for this failure, except himself? Don't go anywhere, because what unfolded after the cameras stopped rolling exposes the real condition of their marriage and their unraveling empire. We've got the backstage details of a blame game that exploded out of control. Stick with us. Things are about to turn ugly. To grasp the anger reportedly simmering beneath Prince Harry's carefully rehearsed smile, you have to see the moment through his lens. This chapter is what we call the sabotage narrative. Most people, when confronted with rows of empty chairs, would pause and ask, did we misjudge the market? Did we fail to promote this properly? But Prince Harry doesn't think like most people. For years, he's embraced a worldview where every setback, every critique, every closed door is proof of a coordinated effort to destroy him. Let's look at the raw facts first. The premiere was held at the Eccles Theatre, the crown jewel of the Sundance Film Festival. This is where real deals get made. The audience here isn't made up of casual film fans. These are industry heavyweights carrying express badges that cost an eye-watering $6,900, granting priority access to any screening they choose. And yet, reports confirm that many of these power players deliberately skipped the Sussex appearance. They scanned the schedule, saw Harry and Meghan's names, and went elsewhere. When the lights dimmed, an estimated 150 empty seats stared back at the Duke and Duchess. Whispers from inside the venue suggest staff scrambled at the last minute, pulling in weight, listed attendees, students, volunteers, anyone available, to fill the lower rows and soften the optics for photos. A classic Hollywood maneuver, papering the house to disguise a flop. Now, here's where the paradox deepens. A rational executive would read the room and think, the demand isn't there, time to adjust. But behavioral experts who've tracked Harry's patterns for years suggest his response leans toward suspicion, not self-reflection. He doesn't interpret indifference. He interprets conspiracy. In Harry's version of events, those empty seats aren't the result of audience fatigue or a lackluster project. No, he believes the British media poisoned the well. He convinces himself that relentless negative coverage, the ridicule of Spare, and ongoing family drama scared Americans away. In his mind, people wanted to attend but feared being publicly associated with him, worried they too would be targeted by the press. This is the ego's ultimate shield. By blaming the media and imagined enemies, Harry escapes accountability. The film didn't fail, it was sabotaged. Netflix didn't reject it, it was pressured. Every disappointment becomes someone else's crime. Standing there, staring at the gaps in the audience, he likely didn't feel humbled. He felt persecuted, and that mindset is dangerous. Because when you're convinced the world is plotting against you, you stop seeing the obvious truth right in front of you. The truth is simple. Those VIPs with $6,900 badges didn't avoid the screening out of fear of the British press. They skipped it because they're in the business of profit. And they know, just like Netflix does, that the Sussex brand has become box office poison. Harry's explosive reaction to the empty seats is a textbook example of a man waging a battle that exists only in his own mind. He believes he's fighting a vast global plot. In truth, he's up against something far less dramatic and far more lethal for a public figure, fading relevance. But while Harry fixates on the media as the villain, he's overlooking the massive elephant in the room. The reason they were standing in that frigid Utah theater had nothing to do with a headline or a hit piece. It traced back to a decision made in a sleek boardroom in Los Gatos, California. A decision made by their own business partner, one that triggered this entire spiral of public embarrassment. If Harry's media paranoia is the smoke, Netflix's decision is the fire. This chapter is what we call Netflix's no. The real trigger to understand why Prince Harry was reportedly simmering with rage beneath that stiff smile. You have to revisit the deal that was supposed to lock in his future. When the Sussexes exited the royal family, they inked a landmark multi-year agreement with Netflix, rumored to be worth around $100 million. Central to that deal was a standard Hollywood clause known as a first look agreement. In simple terms, Netflix gets first refusal. The Sussexes develop ideas, Netflix reviews them, and the streamer has the exclusive right to say yes or no. It's meant to be a safety net, a built-in assurance that if the project is halfway decent, your partner will probably buy it. But for this particular Sundance documentary, the one Meghan was so aggressively promoting, Netflix did the unthinkable. They said no. Let that sink in. A streaming giant hungry for content, already millions deep into the Harry and Meghan brand, evaluated this film and decided it didn't belong on their platform. The message was blunt. We don't want it. Take it somewhere else. For a man raised as a prince, a man who rarely heard the word no, this wasn't just rejection, it was humiliation. Harry likely believes his title alone. The Duke of Sussex should be enough to greenlight anything he touches. He operates under the illusion that Netflix is paying for his presence, not his output. But Netflix isn't a charity, it's a business. And a ruthless one. They cancel underperforming shows/budgets and fire executives without hesitation. And they clearly saw this documentary as a financial risk. This rejection is the real source of Harry's fury. He didn't show up at Sundance just to stroll a red carpet. He was there because he had to hustle. He was reduced to pitching a product that his own employer had already discarded. Picture the humiliation. Prince Harry, the king's son, forced to charm executives from Hulu, Disney, and Peacock, hoping one of them might take Netflix's leftovers. It drags the royal brand down to the level of a desperate reality star scrambling to stretch out their final moments of relevance. Industry insiders say Harry feels deeply betrayed by Netflix. In his mind, this wasn't just business, it was disloyalty. He believes he handed them their biggest win with the Harry and Meghan docuseries, the one built on airing family grievances. He feels owed. The unspoken thought, I gave you the crown jewels, now you buy whatever I make. But Hollywood doesn't operate on gratitude. It runs on one brutal question. What have you done for me lately? And lately, the answer hasn't been much. Beyond endless trauma, dumping, the Sussexes haven't delivered a single undeniable hit. Pearl was cancelled before it ever launched. Other documentary efforts barely made a ripple. Netflix has the data. They know the truth. Once the royal bashing stops, audience interest collapses. So Harry stands in Utah seething, furious at Netflix for exposing him, furious at the industry for forcing him to earn his paycheck, and furious because, deep down, he knows the reality. Without the prince title, he's just another man running a struggling production company with a film nobody wants. But while Harry internalized his rage, blaming the world for his downfall, his wife chose a very different strategy. When Harry retreats under pressure, Meghan goes on the offensive, and her target wasn't a corporation. It was the woman standing beside her on stage. As Harry lingered in the shadows, allegedly boiling over the sabotage of his big night, Meghan leaned into a different coping mechanism. If Harry shuts down when cornered, Meghan performs. This chapter is what we call Meghan's diva distraction. And what unfolded on that stage was a masterclass in how to alienate the very industry you're trying to impress. In Hollywood, hierarchy matters. At a film festival, the director is the artist. The director is the visionary. Industry tradition is clear and unbreakable. The director always speaks first. It doesn't matter if you're a producer, a financier, or even a duchess. You do not take the microphone before the creator of the film. And yet, Meghan Markle, sensing the icy atmosphere of a half-filled theater, apparently decided the only way to salvage the moment was to make it about herself. In a move that left seasoned insiders stunned, Meghan grabbed the microphone before director Alyssa Nama's could say a single word. She completely commandeered the introduction. Instead of respectfully setting the stage for the film, she launched into a speech about my husband and I and R12 Productions, repositioning the story squarely around her own image. It was a frantic grab for control. She couldn't fill the empty seats, so she tried to fill the void with her own voice. But the real mask slip, the moment that exposed the diva mindset, came when the director finally had her turn. Alyssa Nama's, speaking with genuine humility, referred to her film as cute. And for a documentary centered on young girls and the Girl Scouts, cute is not an insult. It's fitting and warm. But watch Meghan's reaction. She visibly recoiled at the word. To Meghan, cute is unacceptable. Cute doesn't feed the ego of someone who sees herself as a global humanitarian icon. She immediately interrupted to correct the director, insisting that while it may be cute, it was also one of the most powerful and meaningful portrayals of leadership. She went on to lecture the audience about depth and complexity. She couldn't allow the film to simply be enjoyable. It had to become a feminist statement that mirrored her own self-concept. Anything attached to her name must be profound, even when it clearly isn't. Before we break down how Harry reacted to this awkward spectacle, let me pause for a moment to speak directly to you, the people who make this community what it is. Here at Legacy's Edge, we value respect, humility, and giving credit where it belongs. Principles that seem strangely absent in Montecito. I sincerely hope you and your loved ones are safe, healthy, and thriving wherever you're watching from. Our global reach continues to humble me. Are you tuning in from a snowy night in Canada, a bright afternoon in Florida, or perhaps somewhere in the UK? Drop your city and country in the comments. Let's remind the world that common sense knows no borders. Now, back to the stage, because the body language between the couple told a story all its own. While Meghan was busy rewriting the director's narrative, take a look at Prince Harry. He wasn't gazing at her with admiration. He stood with his hands shoved into his pockets, eyes glued to the floor, rocking nervously from side to side. His posture radiated discomfort. He looked less like a proud producer and more like a bored security guard. Harry understands the situation. He saw the empty seats. He knows Netflix passed, and he knows Meghan's avalanche of buzzwords wasn't convincing anyone in that room. As she tried to impress the audience with grand speeches about leadership, Harry was likely doing the math in his head, realizing this diva performance was only reinforcing how disconnected they've become. And the industry noticed. Executives in that audience didn't see passion. They saw a producer who talks over talent and eclipses the creative team. They saw someone who needs to be the bride at every wedding and the corpse at every funeral. Meghan's compulsion to dominate a documentary she didn't direct is exactly why Hollywood is losing patience with them. It's unprofessional, it's disrespectful, and it's exhausting. But if Meghan's conduct was a distraction, Harry's stance on his own safety is a contradiction, so stark it borders on the absurd. Because while he stood there in a public theater with open doors and strangers all around him, he was simultaneously claiming in London that his life is in constant danger. How can someone claim to fear the public in the UK, yet casually present himself in a room full of unfamiliar faces in Utah? If Meghan's on-stage performance was about controlling the narrative, Harry's mere presence exposes a hypocrisy so deep it insults the public's intelligence. This is what we call the hypocrisy of safety. And for anyone who has followed his ongoing legal battles, what happened at the Eccles Theatre was nothing short of revealing. Let's stick to the facts. Prince Harry is currently locked in an expensive, high-stakes legal fight with the British government. His argument is stark and alarming. He claims that he and his family face mortal danger due to media threats and the absence of armed police protection. He has testified that he cannot bring his wife and children to the UK because it is simply too dangerous. He portrays himself as a hunted man, someone who requires constant security just to walk down the street. And yet, look at Utah. The Sundance Film Festival is not a fortress. It's an open, public event. The Eccles Theater isn't a secure compound. It's a movie theater with doors wide open. Anyone with a credit card could buy a ticket. Anyone on the wait list could walk right in. There were no background checks, no controlled perimeter, no ring of steel. And yet there stood Prince Harry, the man who claims to be one of the most endangered individuals on the planet, casually lingering in a lobby full of complete strangers. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't rushing for cover. Quite the opposite. He was courting attention, smiling for cameras, waving at onlookers, inviting closer the very media he insists he fears and despises, which forces us to ask the question the mainstream press won't touch. Harry, are you truly in danger? Or are you simply inconveniently famous? You can't have it both ways. You cannot tell a judge in London that you're too frightened to visit your own father because of hostile threats, then hop on a plane to America and stand comfortably among unvetted members of the public just to sell a film. This behavior confirms what critics have long suspected. Harry's fear is selective. He isn't afraid of crowds. He isn't afraid of cameras. He's only afraid when he's no longer in control of the paycheck. When Netflix needs him to promote a project, the trauma suddenly disappears. The anxiety fades, the celebrity smiles return. But when he's back in the UK, where he's no longer the center of attention, the danger mysteriously reappears. This isn't just hypocrisy. It's manipulation. It suggests that Harry treats security not as a necessity, but as a status symbol. He wants armed guards and flashing convoys, not because his life depends on them, but because they signal importance. Without police escorts, he's not a protected royal. He's a retired prince pitching a documentary no one wants. And standing there in Utah, stripped of royal protection and staring down 150 empty seats, he looked painfully ordinary. Now let's apply basic logic. If Harry truly believed stalkers and fixated individuals were actively hunting him, would he really bring his wife to an event advertised weeks in advance? Would he broadcast his location to the world? Of course not. Real targets stay quiet. They avoid exposure. Harry and Meghan did the exact opposite. They issued press releases. That contradiction alone undermines every argument Harry has made in court. It strongly suggests his legal crusade for security has far less to do with safety and far more to do with ego. He wants the privileges of royalty without the obligations. He wants diplomatic treatment while behaving like a social media influencer. And while Harry was playing relaxed celebrity in Utah, his team back in London was busy telling a very different story. Just days before that red carpet appearance, a chilling narrative was quietly leaked to the British press, one clearly designed to alarm the public and pressure the government. But when you connect the dots between the empty theater in Utah and the courtroom drama in London, a troubling pattern emerges. Was the danger in London real, or was it just another carefully staged distraction from a collapsing brand? If the hypocrisy at Sundance was blatant, the maneuvering in London was calculated. We call this chapter The London Connection, the stalker stunt. Only days before Harry faced a humiliatingly sparse audience in Utah, a terrifying headline conveniently surfaced in the UK press. Prince Harry's stalker sat meters behind him at High Court trial. The message was unmistakable. The prince is under constant threat. Even inside a courtroom, danger lurks. He needs armed protection. Now, according to the report, a so-called fixated individual, a woman allegedly flagged by Harry's private intelligence team, managed to enter the public gallery and sit a few rows behind him. His private security reportedly alerted court staff, sparking a scene of heightened drama. But here at Legacy's Edge, we don't just read headlines. We examine protocols, and when you look closely at the venue itself, the stalker narrative begins to unravel. The royal courts of justice are not a shopping mall or an open plaza. They operate with airport-level security. Bags are scanned. Individuals are searched. Armed officers guard the perimeter, so if this woman was seated in the public gallery, it means one thing, and one thing only. She was not armed. She posed no physical danger to the prince, none whatsoever. Had she been carrying something as minor as a nail file, security would have stopped her immediately. So why was she allowed to remain? Because, as a source close to the court later confirmed, it's a public building, and she had every legal right to be there. She hadn't broken the law. She hadn't issued threats. She was simply sitting quietly. Even Samantha Markle, Meghan's sister, weighed in with a biting observation, pointing out the absurd contrast. Harry happily snaps selfies with strangers in America, yet claims to be terrified of a woman silently seated behind him in London. Nothing says cheesy like taking selfies with one stalker, she remarked. Critics believe this entire episode was no accident. It was a calculated security setup. The woman wasn't removed because Harry didn't want her gone. He needed her there. He needed to point to her and tell the judge, "See, I'm unsafe. The police failed me, restore my taxpayer, funded protection." It was courtroom theater designed to strengthen his lawsuit. To win against the Home Office, Harry must prove victimhood. But how does this connect to the Sundance embarrassment? This is where the picture sharpens. The stalker narrative serves a second purpose. It doubles as a ready-made excuse for his collapse in Hollywood. When the film fails, as it clearly has, and when the seats sit empty, Harry can retreat behind the shield of fear. He can claim security concerns prevented proper promotion. He can argue that fan engagement wasn't possible because he was traumatized by events in London. It's a built-in alibi. By presenting himself as hunted, he frees himself from accountability. He doesn't need to explain why no one showed up. Instead, the story becomes that he was hiding for safety. The narrative shifts from no one cares to everyone is obsessed. But here's the bitter irony. That woman in the London courtroom, the so-called stalker, was likely nothing more than a devoted supporter, possibly a member of the Sussex fan base. Perhaps one of the few people who would actually buy a ticket to see his dull documentary. And yet, Harry cast her as a threat. He turned a potential customer into a villain because it suited his legal strategy. That's the paranoia at the heart of his downfall. He sees enemies where there are only consumers. He cries sabotage where there is only indifference. While he was busy fighting imagined dangers in London, the real crisis was unfolding in Utah. Apathy the public isn't trying to destroy him. They're simply done paying attention. This so-called stalker stunt reveals that Harry would rather be a professional victim than a competent producer. He prefers the identity of a hunted prince over that of a failed businessman. But as those 150 empty seats at Sundance made painfully clear, the audience has moved on. They're exhausted by the lawsuits, worn out by the theatrics, and deeply tired of a man who demands privacy in court while craving attention on the red carpet. As the festival wrapped up and the reality of Netflix's rejection settled in, one final verdict became unavoidable. The blame game has reached its end. Harry has run out of people to sue and run out of people to blame. The only person left is the one staring back from the mirror. When the dust cleared at Sundance, those 150 empty seats stood as the only honest review that mattered. Harry can fault the British media. He can point to imaginary stalkers. He can accuse Netflix of betrayal, but Hollywood doesn't care about excuses. It only cares about results. And right now, the Sussex box office is closed. From where I sit here at Legacy's edge, this entire saga delivers a powerful lesson about accountability. Prince Harry is trapped in a cage of his own construction, a worldview where everyone else is the villain, and he is eternally wronged. But as life teaches us all, you cannot litigate your way to success, and you cannot demand respect while clinging to victimhood. Real strength isn't about fighting imaginary enemies in a courtroom. It's about standing in front of a mirror and asking, "What can I do better?" Until Harry learns that lesson, empty theaters will continue to greet him. No amount of security will change that. The world has already moved on. The sabotage narrative is exhausted. And frankly, watching a prince complain about privilege while everyone else works for a living has become the worst kind of reality television. Predictable, repetitive, and painfully dull. Now I want to hear from you. The jury of public opinion, who do you think is truly responsible for this disaster? Is it the so-called hostile media, as Harry insists? Or is it simply a bad product? Cast your vote. Type Harry if you believe accountability is overdue. Type media if you think this was genuine sabotage, and if you believe truth matters more than titles. Hit that like button. It helps us cut through the noise. If you haven't already, subscribe to Legacy's Edge and ring the bell. We don't just cover the news, we break down the psychology behind it. The Sundance curtain may have closed, but the drama is far from over. I'll see you in the next All Politics Faye Entertainment News segment.